Hello, and welcome to the Feeling Good podcast, where you can learn powerful techniques to change the way you feel. I am your host, Dr. Rhonda Borowski, and joining me here in the Murrieta studio is Dr. David Burns. Dr. Burns is a pioneer in the development of cognitive behavioral therapy and the creator of the new team therapy. He is the author of Feeling Good, which has sold over 5 million copies in the United States and has been translated into over 30 languages. His latest book, Feeling Great, contains powerful new techniques that make rapid recovery possible for many people struggling with depression and anxiety. Dr. Burns is currently an emeritus adjunct professor of clinical psychiatry at Stanford University School of Medicine.
Hello, Rhonda. You are now in a deep, deep sleep.
Hello, David. And that other voice you hear is our incredibly wonderful guest, Matt May. So you know that today is an Ask David episode. Welcome to the Feeling Good podcast, and it's episode 456. Hi, Matt.
Hey, Rhonda. Hey, David. So nice to be back with you both.
Really great to have you.
Today's Ask episode will have a lot of really neat questions submitted by people all over the world, like how can you overcome your fear of being alone or abandoned, or what's the best thing to do if you're having to live with someone who's suffering from anxiety or depression, who can sometimes be demanding or argumentative. And then the same person asks, how can we protect ourselves from feeling down after spending time with someone who's anxious or depressed? Do their feelings rub off on us, and do we then get demoralized? And many more, just tremendous questions. So we thank all of you who submitted questions, and we thank you, Matt, for joining us, and you, Rhonda, too, for directing us in this unique time in your life.
Yeah. Well, shall we dive in with Negar's question?
Yes, absolutely.
So she asked, how can I overcome my fear of being alone or being abandoned? You know, Dr. Burns, one of the problems I've had since childhood was that I always worry about being alone and losing the people I love. My mind becomes conditioned, and a lot of negative, obsessive thoughts come to my mind. Even the smallest, irrelevant, and random external event creates a sign and increased stress. But I will not stop trying. I'm very eager to know what you think about the mind and the irrelevant and random patterns that it relates to negative events and how to get out of this cycle. You can even put this on a podcast, which is what we were doing. I think it would be very welcome because I've seen many people who have this problem.
Okay, well, that's a great question, and I'll give you two folks first dibs on it. And keep in mind, if you read the show notes, you'll get extra that we don't do on the live podcast. But if you listen to the live podcast, you'll get extra that you won't find in the show notes, because the show notes are just my first response to, like in this case, Negar, who wrote, and I sent her a number of ideas and suggestions, but the live broadcast will always have much more than the show notes. And why don't you two take your first shot at this important question, because it's a kind of a widespread thing in our culture and many others, that if you're alone or abandoned, you're necessarily going to be feeling very, very upset, depressed, and anxious, and down. But is that really the case? And what can we do with someone who has this fear of being abandoned, which is not rare. It's quite common.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've experienced some of that myself, David, and you helped me with it. And I just followed your instructions, and it worked beautifully. I believe we started with some basics. We did like a daily mood log, and focused on one moment in time, so we could get those thoughts on paper rather than having them swirling around in my mind. And that helped a lot, just to be able to name the problem and to be able to see what was causing me to feel anxious and nervous and worried. And then,
before we go on,
yeah.
because what you said right now is incredibly important. And can you tell me the kind of thoughts that you had or that one is likely to have when you write those thoughts down? And also, when you tell people when you're upset, take a piece of paper and write your thoughts down, is that something that's pretty easy for people to do? Is that a automatic?
No, it requires a little practice and skill to be able to identify those thoughts. It's not overly complicated, but anxious thoughts in particular tend to be hard to track down, and so using the what if technique can help reveal them. So I think I started with a simple thought like, I don't have anyone to spend time with.
Yeah, I was referring to something else, but how do we identify those negative thoughts? We can address that important question also. But isn't there a kind of stubborn refusal to write down one's negative thoughts?
Definitely.
Yeah, and why is that?
That's a great question. It seems maybe like people feel a little hopeless or pessimistic about it working for them. It's such a simple task, but maybe I might have thoughts like I'll do it later. This won't help me. This is a brain condition. I need medication for it. Something like that.
Yeah. These thoughts are real, and it's not just my thoughts. This is a real situation, and this is a stupid waste of time to write down my negative thoughts. I want some real help.
Exactly. Yeah.
I want to find out where they came from. Like maybe something my mother or father did when I was 3 led to these thoughts, and I need to explore that first.
Yeah, and if it's a full fee patient, you have many months or years to explore it. So that's a good deal for the therapist.
Right.
It's such a good deal for the patient.
Right.
Yeah.
Continue, Matt. What you're saying is really cool.
And yeah, by way of contrast, you cured me in maybe a day. I think the thing that actually the ultimate method that helped me was the pleasure prediction.
Yeah.
Where the thought that I couldn't be happy unless I had a companion was completely annihilated, because you asked me to go test that theory out and write down how much fun I thought I would have doing that kind of behavior, just doing fun things on my own. And I was convinced that I would have zero fun, negative fun. And I turned out to have a great time. And so that was the ultimate method that helped me. But there were some important parts upstream from that. Of course, the resistance is all important. I had a lot of process resistance. I didn't want to do it because I thought it would be awful. But I also had some outcome resistance, because I thought that if I maintained this idea that it would be just awful to be alone, that would motivate me to work hard in my relationships. And then I would always have great relationships because I'd be working so hard. And then when we did the cost benefit analysis, that was helpful to me, because I saw that actually that was causing me to be kind of clingy or needy or chasing and not in avoiding conflict. And so it actually sabotaged my relationships. Because I would chase and people would run.
I like to teach at the 4th grade level, because that's where our listeners are at. And when I'm learning things, that's about
I'm at the 3rd grade level.
Me too.
Yeah, okay, sure. Well, this will be the advanced today. This is the 4th grade. This is for really bright 3rd graders. And when you say do a cost benefit analysis, you mean I should make a list, draw a line down the middle of a piece of paper, and mark the left-hand column advantages and the right-hand column disadvantages. And that would be the advantages and disadvantages of being alone versus being loved? Or how do we do that?
For me, it worked to look at the pros and cons of believing that I couldn't be happy if I was alone.
Oh, okay. So you'd write that at the top of the cost-benefit analysis. I can't feel truly happy and fulfilled if I'm alone.
Right.
Oh, interesting. Yes. And then that's a whole different kettle of fish. And so what are some of the advantages of telling yourself I can't be happy if I'm alone?
it'll motivate me to work really hard in my relationships, to be very thoughtful and considerate of other people's preferences, that I'll avoid unnecessary conflicts. I'll
So
strive
it
for
motivates me
peace.
to work on my relationships, helps me avoid conflict, because conflict might lead to being alone.
Right.
And then what are some other benefits of telling yourself, I can't feel happy and fulfilled without a relationship? If I'm alone, I can't feel truly happy and fulfilled.
Yeah, it'll remind me of what I need to do to become happy and fulfilled. Like I'll think that I know some answer to how to get that feeling. That's very clear and easy and simple. Just to go have awesome friendships, and that'll lead to happiness.
Mm-hmm.
Is it friendship or love relationship you're talking about?
In this case, it was a romantic relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So does also motivate you to do the things that a person needs to do to find someone to be in a romantic relationship with?
Yeah, motivation was a big part of it. Thinking that I need this, I have to have a romantic relationship to be happy, was like supposed to be the advantage, was that would motivate me to go and do that.
Yeah. And then what's another big advantage of basing your self-esteem and feelings of worthwhileness on being loved, or being with friends, or being with people who love you?
There's some truth to it that does feel good, and it is enjoyable.
Yeah, and this belief might make it even more enjoyable. Because then when I'm with people I care about, I'll say, oh, this is fantastic. This is the greatest thing since Noah's Ark or something.
Yeah, exactly. It can be very fulfilling if this is what I define as worthwhile and meaningful and the source of happiness. It can feel that way.
Right. Okay, and there are probably a lot of other advantages too. What would you say right now to listeners who are saying, this sounds mildly interesting, but I'm not going to get a sheet of paper and draw a line down the middle and do a dumb cost-benefit analysis?
Well, if this is something that you do want help with, I highly recommend doing it on paper. My experience with everyone I've worked with is that if you try to do it in your head, it's like trying to divide 715 by 37.2 in your head. You'll just get lost in the math.
38.9.
Oh, that's brilliant, David. I don't know how you do that.
You just make up a number and blurt it out. Everyone assumes you're some kind of a genioid, which I'm not.
It's super helpful to have it on paper.
So what are the disadvantages of saying I can't feel happy and fulfilled unless I'm with in a loving relationship, unless I have a romantic relationship, or unless I'm with friends and loved ones and being close to them?
Well, I think it made me kind of needy and on the chasing, in the chasing role, and then that was irritating to people. Like I came across as clingy or demanding, and they didn't want to be. It became like a self-fulfilling prophecy of loneliness, because I was kind of trying too hard. And then also because I wouldn't have conflict, I wouldn't tell people if I was upset with them. They would, of course, keep doing that thing, and I would get more upset. It was like sweeping water behind the dam, and then I get upset to the point where I'd blurt something out after I just couldn't take it anymore. And so I had bad relationships as a result of that, and experienced more loneliness. So it backfired on me. It also caused me to ignore the most important aspect of mental health, which is developing a good relationship with oneself and positive self-esteem, just liking oneself and enjoying one's time without needing something else in the mix there.
I wonder if it also would lead a person to accept, maybe not abusive, but accept relationships that are not healthy or aren't beneficial because you're so worried about being alone that you'll just take any relationship, even an unhealthy one.
Yeah, exactly. I think oftentimes folks end up in bad relationships because they think they're not supposed to have conflict. They're supposed to be nice and go with the flow.
Or also
And
they're so afraid of being alone that they'll accept bad treatment rather than say, I don't deserve to be treated that way. I'd rather be alone than treated this way.
Yeah, that's exactly right, Rhonda. Right.
Yeah, wow, that's huge. So you've given us two powerful tools, but starting with a third powerful tool, or maybe the first, which is the daily mood log, to write down a moment that you were alone and what you were telling yourself. What were your negative thoughts, and then you can find some distortions in those thoughts. And challenge them. What are some of the distortions in the thoughts of people who are afraid to be alone? What do we tell ourselves when we're alone?
There's something wrong with me.
That's one, right?
What is it, Rhonda? There's
something wrong with me that I'm alone.
Yes, right, right, and. So I'm gonna now write these down on a piece of paper. That's what I'm doing. If you're listening to the show, do that also. Number one, there's something wrong with me. Wrong with me if I'm alone. Now, what are some of the cognitive distortions in that thought? Remember our basic thinking, and this people don't believe these basic premises of cognitive therapy, but because they're so simple, people don't get it, they don't grasp it. But number one, the circumstances of your life have no effect on how you feel, especially if you're feeling less than others, or depressed, or anxious, or guilty, or ashamed, or alone and abandoned. It's your thoughts, not the fact that you're alone. And then the second idea is that the thoughts, the things you're telling yourself, are cons. They're not valid. They're not truthful. Now, there's something wrong with me if I'm alone. What are there distortions in that thought, Rhonda?
Yes, there's probably 10 out of 10 distortions.
Oh, really? What are some of them?
Well, labeling. I'm labeling myself wrong, or there's some bad.
Oh, okay. That's huge. That's self-blame. This is my fault, that somehow I'm bad and defective or less than if I'm alone. I love that. What other distortions, Rhonda?
Well, it's a mental filter and discounting the positive. I'm focusing on negatives and I'm ignoring the positives of who I am as a person.
And what are the negatives I'm focusing on, and what are the positives I'm discounting or overlooking?
I'm not even acknowledging that I have a positive. So I'm focusing on what's wrong with me and not what's right about me.
Oh, I see. Is there a lot that's wrong with you, Rhonda?
Well, probably yes. But there's also a lot that's right with me.
Yeah. How about Matt? Is there a lot that's wrong with Matt?
No.
Definitely. I'm glad I've hidden it from Rhonda.
Yeah. Right. And of course, being the guru, I'm flawless. I've achieved that, several months ago.
Absolutely.
I love that mental filter and discounting the positive. What are some other distortions, Matt, in that thought? There's something wrong with me if I'm alone.
I think of it, there's a hidden should. It's demanding that there shouldn't be anything wrong with me.
That's right. That's huge. And what's another hidden should in that thought?
Let's see.
I shouldn't be.
I shouldn't be alone.
Yes, right.
Yeah. I think there's also some mind reading involved, that I'm reading people's minds, that they're rejecting me because there's something wrong with me, rather than because I'm approaching them in an unskillful way.
Yeah, and I'm reminded of that fellow who wanted treatment for social anxiety and being in the grocery store line at a supermarket on a weekend and waiting to check his groceries and thinking that the checker was giving him the eye. And so he thought, well, I'll flirt with her a little bit instead of wimping out when I get up to check my groceries. But then he started having, his mind was flooded with negative thoughts, and people will look down on me if I try to flirt with her, and they'll think I'm just loud and obnoxious, and I'll probably just get shot down, and that'll prove what a loser I am, and all of these negative thoughts related to I must have a loving relationship, and if she doesn't, when I flirt with her, if she doesn't propose we go have sex right away, it'll mean that I'm not cool and awesome. And when he got up to the cash register, he was so nervous he didn't say anything. He just stared at the counter, and she said, $9.96 for the grocery. So he handed her a 10, got his 4 cents, and put in his pocket without even catching her eye, and walked out and told himself, I'm a loser. And if I had tried to flirt with her and she had rejected me, that would prove, that there's something wrong with me, that I'm a loser. And just as an exercise for the people on the show, what are some reasons that a cashier in a grocery store might not respond positively to a young man who's feeling awkward and is trying to flirt for the first time?
Well, she is on the job. She's working. So she might be worried about losing her job if she's caught flirting with
that's a good one.
Customers.
What are some other reasons that she might reject him?
She could be in a relationship already.
Yeah. Uh-huh. Yeah,
she could be.
That's great. What else?
She could be, a lesbian and not interested in dating a man.
Yeah, that could be. What are some other reasons?
She could have low self-esteem or social anxiety herself.
Yeah.
And feel uncomfortable reciprocating.
Yeah, absolutely. What are some others?
She could be having a terrible day.
Yeah, sure.
Really distracted.
Bad day. And what's an obvious one? Could she reject him because he's not very good at flirting?
For sure.
Yeah.
Would that show that there's something wrong with him?
Well, he's got a skill to learn.
Yeah.
How?
He has a skill to learn.
Yeah. That's right. And so I love the example, and you could come up with a list of 10 or 15 example reasons, which we did, and that was very helpful to him to see all the many reasons that someone can and will reject him, and then I gave him for homework the assignment to go out and collect 10 rejections a week, which takes courage. And he was terrified at first. And I told him, if you approach a young woman and talk to her and get her phone number, you don't get any credit. But if she rejects you, you get a credit, and you have to get 10 credits each week. And he started, more power to him. He decided to start doing that. And he did pick up a number of rejections at first, and then he started having some success. And it was really a life-changing experience. And I don't want to go deeper with this one because we're just looking at this thought. If I'm alone, that means there's something wrong with me. And in that case, it's not the fact that you're alone, but the fact that you're beating the hell out of yourself, that you're treating yourself in a shabby way, giving yourself a mean message, Would you say that to somebody else you love, who was alone? Walk up to them, say somebody sitting on their front porch alone, and walk up and just say, "There's something wrong with you because you're alone here on your front porch." You know, it's absurd, but we do that to ourselves. Any other distortions in that thought? There's something wrong with me if I'm alone. Self-blame, mental filter, discounting the positive should statements, mind reading. What else?
Well, even the example you just gave with this guy at the grocery store, it seems like the distortion is magnification. Like he's magnifying the idea that something's wrong with him.
Yeah, magnifying the awfulness of the situation and magnifying his flaws and shortcomings and minimize what's kind of cool and awesome about him. He was a pleasant, good-looking guy and had a great sense of humor. He was fun to talk with. He just had this one lesion, this one area that he has intense social anxiety, which probably has a strong genetic component. And fortunately, it's something very easy to treat. There's one other distortion neither of you mentioned, or at least one other.
Emotional reasoning?
Yes, emotional reasoning. Exactly. How would that work?
Well, if he's in the line there and he starts to get kind of nervous because he's telling himself he's going to get rejected and it's going to be awful or something like that, he'll have anxiety. He'll start to feel that in his body, and he'll start to think, oh, that means there's something wrong with me and something bad is going to happen.
Yes, I feel a loser.
Yeah.
So I must be a loser.
Right.
And why is that a distortion? If you feel like a loser, doesn't it mean you are a loser? You feel like a loser and the cashier rejects you, so you did lose, and you feel like a loser, and you think everyone's looking at you and thinking you're a loser. So doesn't that mean you really are a loser?
Well, there's no such thing as a loser, because even if I tried as hard as I couldn't lose at everything completely all the time.
Let's define terms. That's yet another technique. Great. Are there any other distortions there? There's something wrong with me if I'm alone.
There's jumping to conclusions that other people would not be okay with there being something wrong. Everyone would reject me. All people think alike, and will.
Yeah. And is that the same as the mind reading you mentioned previously?
It's very similar.
Very similar. Okay. Yeah. Any others?
Could it be all or nothing thinking? I'm either all wrong or I'm all right.
Yeah.
100%.
All right. That's cool. Awesome. That's what I was thinking of. And also, is it labeling or overgeneralization?
Mm-hmm.
It's both of those.
How would that work?
Overgeneralization is that we imagine it's a never-ending pattern of defeat, that this one rejection means that I'll always be rejected by everyone in the future.
Yeah. Or if I'm alone, that means what, Rhonda?
That I will always be alone.
Yeah.
I have no other option.
Right. Yeah,
this is my destiny.
Yeah, and that there's something wrong with me. Is that the implication that we have a self?
We do have a self. Is implied in that thought.
Yeah, that's the Buddhists say, no self, no problem.
Exactly.
But it's not, there's something wrong with my flirting skills, which is certainly the case for most of us, especially at first. But then there's something wrong with me if I get rejected or if I'm alone. So there's really, as you mentioned, Rhonda, a good, I'll count the distortion: self-blame, mental filter, discounting the positive, hidden shoulds, mind reading, emotional reasoning, magnification and minimization, labeling, overgeneralization, and all or nothing thinking. There are 9 or 10 distortions in that thought. So what we've gone over so far, Negar, is just in a step-by-step way, 4 tools that and there's many more in the show notes but 4 tools for dealing with the fear of abandonment. And another one would be to imagine you've been abandoned and make yourself as anxious as possible and for as long as possible, and just fantasize whatever is the worst. Maybe being abandoned on a desert island, and there's you can read about that technique in the first section of my book, Intimate Connections, which is all about dating. But the first part is overcoming the fear of being alone, which is a kind of a ticket. That's how you get your ticket into the dating world. The paradox is that you pointed out already, Matt, is that once you overcome your fear of being alone, it becomes far easier and more effective when you're dating, because you're not looking for some other person to make you happy and fulfilled, but rather you're looking for love because you want it and not because you need it. And you'll have something to bring to the other person, and they won't have that power to make you feel frightened, and if they reject you, because a lot of people will reject you. A lot of people reject me. I wish that a lot more would reject me, because the more people reject you, the more famous you become. The more, because for everyone who rejects you, 10 others like you. But if somebody likes you, it doesn't mean you're any better than anyone else. And if someone rejects you, a lot of people don't like my thinking, and they're kind of pissed off at David. That just means they've got a different point of view, or maybe they don't understand what I'm teaching, or maybe sometimes my ideas are just plain wrong. It's when you're thinking you have this self. But the techniques to make it simple are to use the daily mood log and write down your negative thoughts. And again, what did the Buddha say if people are listening and they kind of going to refuse to write down their negative thoughts because they think it won't help and they think it's dorky? What did the Buddha say about them?
They should do it anyway.
Yes, that was the first thing. And he said, and if they don't, they're screwed. And the third thing he said is, furthermore, they can go screw themselves. That's some compensation for being alone, I suppose. But it's incredibly important. And write down your negative thoughts. What are you telling yourself? And those thoughts will be distorted. Once you challenge those thoughts and decide to treat yourself in a more loving way. That's one of the keys, not getting other people to love you, but making the decision to love yourself. And then the cost-benefit analysis is so important. What are the advantages and disadvantages of saying my worthwhileness depends on being loved and being with other people, and if I'm alone, I'm screwed, and shows I'm worthless. What are the advantages and disadvantages of having that belief system? And then the pleasure predicting sheet, doing experiments, and I've done ones very much like what you described, Matt, of spending time alone and longer periods alone, and predict how satisfying it's going to be not to be alone, but the things that you would do when you're alone. Are you doing things that are kind of fun for you and exciting for you and interesting for you? Or when you're alone, do you just sit and stare at a wall and eat peanut butter sandwiches and feel sorry for yourself? Well, then you won't like being alone, but it's not that you're alone or abandoned. It's because of the way you're treating yourself, that you're not loving yourself, rather than you don't have enough love coming from other people. And those are just 3, 4, 5, 6 techniques that you can use. And there's at least 15 or 20 I listed in the show notes, and in the book Intimate Connections has been very helpful to a lot of people who had a fear of being alone and didn't have the skills that they wanted and needed in the dating world. And if you're interested, you can pick up that book and read it, and I'll try to put a link to it in the show notes. It's a mass market paperback, so it's not not expensive, but it does have a lot of work on this thing. Well, do you guys have any final comments to make on this fear of being alone or abandoned?
Well, there's so much to say about how to help someone with that concern. I think it's worthy of its own podcast. I think we did a really good job, though, on this one.
I agree. There's a lot more gold in them than our hills, for sure.
Yeah.
And if you, pick up the tools and use them, that'll put you in an entirely different universe.
Mm-hmm.
So let's go on to another question. But Negar, thank you for your wonderful question. It certainly fired up a lot of excitement here with our little team.
All right. Here is what Stan wrote. Dear Dr. Burns, thank you for all the effort you put into the podcast, video clips, and other material, which I find so helpful. They're a great addition to the books you've written. They're inspiring, very inspiring, and life-changing in my case. I have 2 questions that I would be very grateful if you would discuss in one of your Ask David podcasts, if you think they're worth discussing. Living with an anxious or depressed person who can sometimes be argumentative or demanding. Do you have advice for family members or housemates that live with a person suffering from anxiety or depression? No one wants to make the situation worse, and maybe there are some suggestions. I know it can be very difficult living with someone who's anxious or depressed. An anxious or depressed person might sometimes be very demanding, argumentative. They might also sit around doing almost nothing all day, or they might have odd sleeping hours, for example. They may make unreasonable requests or be overly sensitive, and when hurt, lash out at others. Suggestions?
Sure. So there's 2 parts to Stan's questions. The first is, how can you live with someone who's anxious or depressed, especially if they're lashing out in an angry, demanding, or argumentative way? And the second question, which we'll come to after we've touched base on this one, is how do you avoid having their negative feelings rub off on you? And the answer to the first question will be the 5 secrets of effective communication. And the answer to the second question will be the daily mood log. So let's look at the first, what you folks say about, living with someone who's depressed, who lashes out, or who could be angry or demanding.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think the answer is the 5 secrets of effective communication, and upstream from that, some decision making and some agenda setting as to whether or not we want to accept the other person as they are and try to understand them, or if we want to which will work, or if we want to try to change them, which will fail and make everybody miserable.
Why do you think it's the 5 secrets of effective communication?
Because if someone is being demanding or lashing out or arguing with us, it's because we're forcing them to do that through ineffective communication.
How could you use the relationship journal to prove that to yourself, to discover how you're forcing that angry or depressed person to lash out?
You could pick any one moment in time where that other person was being demanding or lashing out or overly sensitive. Write down what they said, what the other person said, and then write down exactly what you said in response, and then give yourself a grade. And you'll see that you're not doing empathy, you're not being assertive and vulnerable, and you're not showing respect. And that is, in a pattern that is directly causing what the other person is doing.
So you're saying that if you're living with somebody who's lashing out and being demanding, you're forcing them to do that. And in addition, if you're willing to understand that statement, you can use the relationship journal. And step 1 is write down one thing the other person said that didn't go well, and then write down exactly what you said next. And again, what would we say to users who say, that's stupid, I'm not going to do what Dr. Burns said, write down what my son or partner said during a conflict, write that down, and then write down exactly what I said next. Could there be people who will refuse to do what I just said?
Yeah,
Yes.
it's pretty normal to refuse that. It seems kind of kooky or weird.
Yeah, and again, why might people refuse to follow that advice?
They don't want to be responsible for their actions. They want to blame someone else.
Right. How big is that, Rhonda?
Pretty big.
That's partially correct. How big is that, Matt?
It's huge.
Huge.
Yeah.
That's the hugest problem in the world, is blaming other people and refusing to look at our role in a problem. But it's also empowering to do that, to learn to do that, if you want to have more loving relationships. Interpersonal enlightenment is very, very powerful, and that's what the relationship journal is designed to trigger, to learn to look at your own role rather than to blame other people. And some people are willing to do it, and many people are unwilling to look at their own role. We would prefer to blame others and say it's their problem. The advantage, if there is an advantage, of looking at your own role is it allows you to become effective and to transform a troubled relationship into one that's more loving. Now, Stan, if you're listening, I hope you are, and you wrote the questions, you can find the relationship journal. You can probably just look for it on Google. It's my copyrighted form, but it's probably somewhere out there in the public domain, or I could even send you one. And if you wanted to do that exercise, it's really cool. And then we could deal with that in a future show of the Feeling Good podcast, and prove to you that you're actually causing the person to do that, and exactly how and why that happens. And once you see that, that's one of the 4 great deaths of the self. And this is perhaps the most painful, when you see your own role in a conflict with someone else. But it's also tremendously empowering, because if you're willing to experience that great death and swallow your pride and see how you're interacting with the other person, it's actually triggering them to behave exactly as they're behaving, then you have the choice of responding differently with the 5 secrets of effective communication to get a loving response from them rather than a hostile or demanding one. And to learn more about this, you could read my book, Feeling Good Together, and do the written exercises in it. Now, what would we say to a person who says, okay, I'll read the effing damn book, but I'm not going to do the stupid written exercises while I'm reading? I don't need to do that. What would we say to that person?
That would be sad, because it's a lost opportunity to learn the 5 secrets. And just like learning any skill, you have to practice it. Just like if you were learning the violin or throwing a ball.
And learn it in my head. I'm a smart person. Why should I have to do stupid written exercises while I'm reading a book?
Could you learn how to play the violin without picking up a violin and practicing it?
Oh, good point. Good point. So, anything else for?
Well, yes. So that's how you would respond to someone who is irritated or angry. Like, what if you're living with somebody who's depressed and they're in bed with the covers over their head, or they're not engaging? Would the 5 secrets be used in that situation too?
It depends on what we're solving for. If it's to improve the relationship, yeah. If it's I think a lot of times people have a bunch of negative thoughts associated with that create negative feelings. Like they shouldn't still be in bed, or they're rejecting me. The fact that they're in bed right now means they don't care about me or love me, where I need them to change in order for me to be happy. And those negative thoughts can create a lot of suffering.
Yes, and this brings us to Stan's second question. Do negative emotions transfer from someone who's depressed or angry or upset to us? Do other people give us negative feelings because they're upset?
Shall I read his question?
Yeah.
Why do we feel bad, and how can we protect ourselves from not feeling down during and after spending social time with anxious and or depressed people because they express anxious or depressing thoughts to us? It seems to me that we must start to believe the distorted negative thoughts that the anxious or depressed person transmits to us. So we start to feel the same negative emotions the other person feels. When this happens, we might start to avoid contact with the other person, which might make them feel worse. As always, I appreciate your thoughtful comments on the above two matters. Thank you again. Kind regards, Stan.
Yes, and here this is a 5 secrets response. I mean a daily mood log response. It's impossible. You see, other people who are depressed or anxious cannot cause you to feel a particular way. For example, I've spent most of my life with depressed and anxious people. I used to see 17 different depressed and anxious patients on Wednesdays when I was in Philadelphia, from early morning until fairly into the evening, back to back. And the longer the day went on, the higher I got. I loved it when people said, or when they tell me on the hike, I'm really feeling depressed and anxious, then I feel joy because I have the thought, wow, I can probably give this person a lot of help, even in the next half hour, hour and a half on this hike. But it's what you're telling yourself. And so, Stan, if you want to find out why you're creating negative feelings when you're around a loved one who's anxious or depressed, then you can, search Google for Dr. Burns's daily mood log and write down the situation, like the other person won't get out of bed or whatever it is, or they said blah, blah, blah. And then how upset are you? You rate your depression from 0 to 100, your anxiety from 0 to 100, your guilt and shame from 0 to 100, all these negative emotions. And then you write down the distorted negative thoughts that are triggering them. And then you can identify the distortions in your thoughts and use any of the 50 or 100 techniques for crushing distorted thoughts that I've learned or developed that you can read about in any of my books, like Feeling Good or Feeling Great. That's the overview. And if you do that, Stan, and send us your daily mood log, then we could also discuss that on a future Feeling Good podcast, which because the devil's in the details, and the specifics are what's tremendously illuminating when you suddenly see that the thoughts that you're giving yourself, telling yourself, are very, very distorted. Like, let's see what you guys have to say about this, because one thing we might say, what kind of thoughts might we have that are upsetting, like this person shouldn't be so angry, or shouldn't be so depressed, or this person should get out of bed, or this person shouldn't be so lazy, or blah, blah, blah. And
or I can't help them.
Yeah, or I should be able to help them, and I can't help them. So then I'm a failure.
Well, one is that they're making me feel bad. He's suggesting that he thinks that the other person's anxiety and depression is causing him. So he's blaming the other person for his feelings. And the thought is that, they shouldn't be doing that. They shouldn't be depressed and anxious and making me feel bad.
Yes. And then Stan also mentioned that he starts believing the thoughts of the other person. And that'll certainly make you feel bad. But again, that's you're believing distorted thoughts. And I asked that early in my career to Aaron Beck, because the first time I see a depressed or anxious patient, I began believing their thoughts, because they say, Dr. Burns, I really am a worthless human being. I really am a hopeless case. And they really persuade you of that. And I start thinking, yeah, I think this person really is hopeless and worthless. There's no distortions here. I think that always at the beginning when I'm working with someone, they hypnotize me, or I hypnotize myself into thinking what they're saying is true. And then over time, I begin to say, wait a minute here. This is a lot of baloney. That this person is worthless or that this person is hopeless, and then I began to see their distortions and find ways to help them. But more from you two guys, because that both of Stan's questions are just amazingly interesting and important.
Well, I kind of have a personal example of this because I got bad news and I got really depressed about it. And I told Michael I was just going to go to bed at about 5:30 one afternoon. And I did. I just went to bed and did put the blankets over my head and just kept looking at the clock to think, what time can I actually start letting myself go to sleep so that I could sleep through the night? And on the next morning, he said it was really hard for him to not feel the sadness and depressed. And then he was kind of moping around feeling sadness the rest of the night. I was like, shake it off. Can I just have my feelings without you having them too? But it was hard for him to separate his feelings from mine. I think because he had that thought, I can't help her.
And he cares about you, and he doesn't want to see you in a negative mood state.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, so he might have some resistance to accepting where you're at.
Mm-hmm.
And he might not want to feel joyful and happy if you're feeling depressed, and that's okay. And I don't think we're here to try to force anyone to feel differently than they do. But if Stan wants to feel better, then he could. But he'd have to look at resistance like that. Like, why would he not want to accept someone he's close to when they're feeling depressed or anxious? Why would he not want to feel happy and joyful?
Do you want to talk about what you were feeling down about, Rhonda?
That's a great question, yeah.
Well, you don't give... Well, I was recently diagnosed with having follicular lymphoma, which is a type of cancer in the lymph node and blood system. And but stage 1, it's curable, and I'm undergoing treatment for it. But at one point in the process of undergoing tests and getting conflicting messages before the diagnosis was made, I did feel really overwhelmed, and then thought, I'm just going to go to bed and maybe I'll feel better in the morning. I didn't think that thought. I just thought, I'm going to bed. I'm overwhelmed. And I didn't think much past that. And then in the morning, Michael said, I'm having heart palpitations. I've never had that before. And I thought, really? You are? I mean, no, if you're really having heart palpitations, let's take you to the hospital. Maybe you're having a heart attack, or maybe you're feeling anxious about me. And then we talked about it, and he was not having a heart attack. He was feeling sad and anxious, and that he couldn't help me, and that it was hard to see me in bed with the covers over my head. And I got pretty irritable too, because he opened the door and said, "Can we talk?" And I think I did snap at him. I just want to be left alone. Do you have to talk to me?
If you have to talk to me, what?
That was it. Do you have to talk to me, or can you just leave me alone? And then he snuck out. Oh, sorry. And I'm sure he didn't like that either.
Well, you've had a really rugged few weeks, Rhonda, and I'm so glad that today is your first treatment, and that's why we're recording this early on Tuesday morning rather than Tuesday afternoon, because your first radiation treatment on your lymphoma area in your neck under your right ear is going to be this afternoon at 4, and we're all going to be thinking about you and pulling for you. And the next 12 days going to be having one of those every day, and hopefully that will be curative for this lymphoma. But we all love you, and all of our fans love you. And we're just going to be thinking about you and sending you all kinds of healing vibrations in the next 12 days.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
I'd also like to point out how proud I am of you, Rhonda, because you spent maybe a little time under the covers, which I think is what I would have done too, receiving such overwhelming news. But then you bounced back with such energy to fight this and pulling people together and really being a wonderful example.
Oh, thank you.
How to face this. And I'm just the only negative feeling I have is I feel angry at cancer for affecting such a wonderful, beautiful person.
Thank you. I feel really lucky that it got caught in stage 1 and grateful that it wasn't masked by other symptoms. And I was really interested in Stan's question because it's so relevant to me and Michael. He feels like it's so permeable between us. If I'm anxious, he's anxious. If I'm depressed, he's depressed. And I've said, well, you need to deal with that because that doesn't help me. And so this is helpful, the conversation.
Yeah, and remember, if you need some higher powered help, Matt and David are ready to jump in at any time and do a little personal work with our beloved Rhonda.
Agreed.
Thank you.
I'm thinking about the 23rd Psalm. I'm not very religious, but I think that's in the Hebrew Scriptures, the 23rd Psalm. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. My rod and my staff, they comfort me. And Matt and I can take turns being the rod and staff and comfort you. I don't know. Would you rather be a rod or a staff, Matt? What is a staff? I know what a rod is.
I think it's like I think they're kind of the same thing.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Maybe one has a hook on the end.
Right.
But without joking, we all enter into the valley of the shadow of death at times, and it's particularly important to have loving relationships then, because that love and peace can facilitate healing for sure.
Well, I told Matt before you got on, David, that I didn't want to talk about it because you were going to make me do exposure. And I didn't want to do exposure. But one thing I am really terrified about is, I have to wear this mask, which is a great thing. And it's a gift to my health. That's going to make sure the beams of radiation go to the right place and protects the rest of my face from being exposed to radiation. But they snap it into the table so that I can't move. And that the sounds of the snapping are terrifying, actually. And the immobility, even for the brief time, is uncomfortable.
Well, I think that mask is something to be grateful for, Rhonda. You remember my psychodrama story where the first time I crashed in a psychodrama marathon when I was in medical school. Then afterwards I was very open and vulnerable, and I looked at the woman on the other side of the circle of people in the psychodrama, and I saw this purple mark on the side of her face, close to where yours was, and I knew that was a radiation mark. I guess they didn't used to have the masks, but they marked the face with the area with a stain, so they'd know where to direct the radiation. And I saw those stains, and I could see how awful she felt, and I started crying. And the psychodrama leader said, "David, why are you crying?" And I said, "Because that woman is going to die. She must be getting radiation for cancer because she has that mark on her face." And then the psychodrama leader said, "Well, where is the mark? I can't see it." And then I looked again, and it disappeared. And then they asked her, like, "Are you receiving treatment at Stanford for cancer?" And she said, "No, but he's right. I feel like I am dying because I'm so lonely and I've been ashamed and afraid to tell anyone. And then she started sobbing, and then she did her thing and crashed and got her enlightenment as well. But I remember that we used to see that all the time in the Stanford Hospital, people with these purple marks somewhere on their body where they were getting radiation. And it sounds like now they've got a cooler and more awesome way of actually putting a mask on your face that protects all of the areas except for that one small area where they want to concentrate the radiation. So although it's clickety clackety and scary, it's you might be grateful to have that mask.
Yeah, I do feel grateful. I do feel it's a gift to my health.
Yeah.
And I'm really impressed, Rhonda, because you said you were afraid of David forcing you to do exposure, but you just jumped right in there and started doing exposure
I know.
and thinking about it on your own. And I'm really glad to be here with you as you're doing that.
Thanks. Yeah.
And
David
Rhonda,
pulls that out in me.
Tell us what it is you're doing now that you were afraid of. What exposure are you now doing?
Well, I'm talking about what's coming up, and I'm imagining it over and over again until I get bored with it, hopefully. Knock on wood.
But is the exposure the fear of telling people openly that I have cancer and I'm being treated with radiation starting today for cancer? Did you have that fear?
I had that fear. But again, you made
what
me.
What you've been afraid of that people will be thinking right now?
Oh, I don't want people will feel sorry for me and they'll pity me and
then so if people right now, you have many fans all around the world right now who are beginning to realize at this moment that you've been diagnosed with cancer and have to have radiation therapy, and they're saying they think they've caught it early. And this is the only type of follicular lymphoma that's curable, is if they can get it really early and it's localized to one part of your body, and that's the situation that you're in. And they caught it super early. But there are a lot of people now thinking, oh my gosh, I love Rhonda and she's been such a great podcast hostess, and they're wanting to send you love and let you know how much they care about you, Rhonda.
Thanks. That would be nice. Thank you.
One thing we didn't talk about in the first vignette, first question, was the hidden emotion. How sometimes, if we're thinking that other people would pity us or feel sorry for us, that we might get annoyed with them, right? That because it's kind of like they're looking down on us rather than being present with us.
Mm-hmm.
And do you notice any of that feeling when you think to yourself, people are going to feel sorry for me and pity me?
Yeah, because then it feels like the hidden emotion, I think, is that then I start thinking, well, now I'm going to have to take care of them. So if they're feeling sad or sorry for me, then I will have to pull out of my experience or stop focusing on my healing and start paying attention to what their needs are. And I don't have the energy to do that right now.
Oh, yeah. So I shouldn't have to take care of them when I'm trying to do my best to take care of myself.
Right.
That seems like wisdom to me.
Thanks. Yeah.
How are you doing right at this moment, Rhonda?
Well, it's a combination of feeling really grateful for the two of you, David and Matt, and feeling just really sad and overwhelmed with what's going on.
Well, we're so glad that you asked us to join you in this journey, and so proud of you, facing the first radiation today. And I look forward to, when, later tonight, then when it's all, if the first one's done, and so it won't be a new thing anymore, and
Right.
and you'll be pretty soon the 12 days will be completed. But I look forward to being with you, and I think a lot of the people on our podcast look forward to accompanying you as well, and giving you a lot of love.
Thank you. Thanks. And I have something, Brandon, our friend Brandon, his mother has gone through her own experience with cancer and had to have radiation. And she gave me the advice to bring a chunk of tofu, and that as soon as the radiation is over, slap some tofu on my neck, and that will help with the burning and the treatment. And I mentioned it to my doctor, and he was like, as long as it's organic.
Yeah, right. Good. This is a friend of Brandon, not Brandon.
His mother.
Oh, I see.
Not Brandon. No, his mom. Yeah. So I've got my tofu all ready to go.
All righty.
Well, I hate to end the podcast on a negative note, so let's be positive. I'm imagining the radiation beams to be like dragons from the Game of Thrones, and they're going to be burning the cancer. And then, if you've watched the Game of Thrones, then the Unsullied are coming to sweep it out, and then a garden of beautiful flowers is going to be growing where the cancer grew.
I like that.
And will that be, the garden be inside your neck, or will they actually go through the neck and sprout leaves
start
and little
growing
flowers to start growing on the right side of your neck?
I was imagining it inside my neck, but I could start thinking about it on the outside, some roses and lilies.
Yeah.
I was thinking too that they have to use that kind of cage with the snaps and stuff like that, because you're so powerful and so strong that you just break out of there if they didn't have that.
Yeah. Right. Thanks. Yeah.
And so thank you, all you who sent in questions. We only made a dent. Let me look at the list of questions. They were such great questions. I'll tell you how many we went through and how many remain. But I personally love these Ask Davids. Yes, we've only done the first three questions, and we have 9. So we have 2, 4, 6 more wonderful questions. And so all of you, Anna's asking how to live with infertility, and Brittany's going to ask, is autism really on the increase? And Ollie asks, how do you motivate someone who's procrastinating? And Owen asks, should I complete a full daily mood log every day, or can I do a part of one? And he also asks if it's okay to copy the positive reframing from a previous daily mood log rather than starting from scratch. And finally, Zainab asks, is friendship a basic human need? Question that comes up in one form or another frequently. And we addressed that a little bit from Negar's question on abandonment, but we'll address that one too. So there's a lot of really good ones to come, and keep your questions coming, because I personally love your questions and I love answering them, and especially with you, Rhonda, and you, Matt. I just think that getting the input from the three of us is kind of special for us, and I hope it's special for all of you who are podcast fans and who are listening. We love you all and appreciate you greatly.
Well said, David. So great spending time with both of you. And Rhonda, I'm really appreciating your vulnerability and just being here with you today. Thank you.
And I'm very grateful to both of you too. I appreciate you.
Thank you.
This has been another episode of the Feeling Good podcast. For more information, visit Dr. Burns' website at feelinggood.com, where you will find the show notes under the podcast page. You will also find archives of previous episodes and many resources for therapists and non-therapists. We welcome your comments and questions. If you want to support the show, please share the podcast with people who might benefit from it. You could also go to iTunes and leave a 5-star rating. I am your host, Rhonda Borowski, the director of the Feeling Great Therapy Center. We hope you enjoyed this episode. I invite you to join us next time for another episode of the Feeling Good podcast.